What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to my channel, Money Moves with Kay. I'm Kay, and today we want to talk about how I flipped unwanted land from a free property list and made $25,000. Come on now, we gotta get into the details. Without further ado, let's get it popping. But first, I really want you to understand two things, because I know you're wondering, Kay, how'd you find unwanted land? Number one, and number two, Kay, how'd you make money from it? So let's get into the details. One of the first things you need to identify is if the state that you are trying to purchase a property or flip a property in is in a tax lien state or a tax deed state. Me personally, I like to invest in tax deed states because after the auction is over, and it depends on the actual state. For instance, North Carolina has a 10-day upset bid period where somebody else can overbid you, and then it's kind of like a bidding war. But you first need to identify whether it's a tax deed or a tax lien state. With a tax deed state, you're able to get the property after the auction is over, right? So it becomes in your possession. For a tax lien state, there could be other things that interfere, such as a redemption period or other things in that nature, right? So I like to invest in tax deed states because once the auction is over, if there are no redemption bids or whatever, or if nobody overbids me, the property is mine. So I love that process. So this is a map of tax deeds versus tax liens. And I do want you to do your due diligence, even with a map, right? Anything that you see, you need to question it, ask questions to your county or your state, or just research it yourself. You don't necessarily have to call them to ask them, is this a tax deed or a tax lien state? Google or the internet will help you identify those particular answers to your questions. So, that's your first step. Identify, is it a tax lien state or is it a tax deed state? Once you go from there, you can try to find properties. Now, here's where the details come in. So what I did was I looked on one of my favorite lists, and I'll link all these videos in the description. I've made videos on what you should be doing in order to find this free list, okay? It's tons and tons and tons and tons of properties. Just depends on the county. Whether it be tax delinquent or surplus list or whatever. But for me, I've purchased and found the property on a surplus list. Now, this is not the county that I found the property from. This is just an example of a surplus list. What is a surplus list? A surplus list is basically what was left over from auction that didn't sell. So that's very tricky. Not even very tricky, but that's very interesting, I should say, because I purchased land. And I made a video about that in one of my very first videos I made about. We talked about it. And I'll get more into details about what happened with the land. But I purchased a property off a surplus list. This is a list that people said or deemed that, hey, that property is no good. But I did my research. Now, that's a key thing for you. You have to know the details. You have to know what you're looking for, okay? And if you need help with that, I do offer one-on-one consultations. The link is in the description for that as well. And I also have an ebook on how to wholesale properties. I'll place that in the link as well, or the description, excuse me. But you need to know what you're looking for. Otherwise, whatever all other investors said as far as it being maybe not a good property could be right. And that's where your due diligence comes in so that you understand what to buy. That's the kicker. It may be $2 to purchase, but do you want that $2 piece of land? Why is it $2, right? You have so many questions in your head. What's wrong with it, right? That's the biggest question that comes to your mind if the property is so cheap. But what I did was I did a ton of research on this property. I looked up if it was in a flood zone, if it was in an opportunity zone, which it was. And I also identified what was going on in the local area of this particular piece of land. So I identified that this was an area that was being revitalized, which meant that the county was really, really pressed on making the area better. So because of that, they were pumping a lot of money, or they are pumping a lot of money into the count of this particular area. So me knowing that, and me doing all my research and doing all the due diligence, I looked at if you see right here, it says parcel ID. You can look up the parcel ID and identify like how big is the lot. Also did a video on topography, because you don't want to purchase a piece of land that it could be pretty good as far as not being in a flood zone. It could have everything going for itself, right? Everything is going right, but the land could be sloped, right? Which means that, water could collect and it could be an issue or whatever the case may be. So you really need to identify and look at the topography of the property as well in order to know this is a good piece of land to invest in. But I will say that it's a risk, because as human beings, I know as an investor, I always want to know, like, well, why didn't they purchase it, right? What's wrong with it? Like I said earlier. And that was going through my mind when I purchased the property. However, it was something about this property, meaning the details of when I looked up on the property, that made me say, I'm getting in this property. So I purchased this property about 2 years. My husband and I purchased it about 2 years ago for $4,000. Now that for you may be a steal. Money is subjective. So you might say that's expensive. But we purchased it for $4,000. And our initial plans were to actually build on the land. But I did a video on that as well. We built a new construction home. We didn't build on that land because it was a little bit too costly for us as far as what we wanted to spend on it to level it out and stuff like that. And they just felt like it wasn't a good fit. And we felt like this particular builder, this company, wasn't a good fit for the type of property that could be built on it. Now, if you have an experienced builder or vision, that's all it takes, guys, as well, a vision. If you have a vision about what it could be, like we did, because this property can actually hold up to, I think, 3 or 4 units, right? So we didn't use the land. We just found another piece of land that was a little bit more flat and the actual builders could work with, because they're kind of used to like the cookie cutter building process, right? They weren't thinking outside of the box, and they definitely didn't have the vision that we had when we purchased the property. So, so keep that in mind. I purchased it for $4,000. Now, fast forward to the end of 2024, December 29th or 30th. Me and my husband had a conversation, and we have a different vision for what we're trying to do with some more land. Okay, so we want to purchase some land, and I'll do other videos in the future about what we want to do with that land. But our vision doesn't necessarily involve the piece of land or the infill lot or the parcel property that we purchased. So we sold it. Okay, we sold it, and we sold it for $25,000. Now, that's almost 6 times or so the amount of money that we paid for it, right? Which is amazing. But we really have to understand, like, or I really want you to understand, like, it is a process and it is a risk. You have to do your due diligence. That's my biggest thing with any video that I do. And I talk about properties, especially off of these lists. And this is not the only list. So if you live in Texas, it may be called, I think it's a struck off list. So in different areas, it's called different things. So I did a video about that. Check it out, guys. It's very informative, and it'll change how you search and find this information. So I think the biggest thing that shocked me with this particular piece of land, I've sold property before. I've sold land before and homes before. I think what shocked me with this land is that the amount of time that it took to sell. Because again, I told you it was in an opportunity zone, and an LLC, a person who owns an LLC, actually purchased the land. So I know their vision. I know exactly what I'm curious when I go back to the area to see, because I'm out of state, right? I invest in a piece of land that I wasn't in the same state either. So you can do this virtually. I do all this from the comfort of my home as well. But yeah, I just really wanted to come on and tell you guys what we did with the property, and also discuss, like, I was getting to how amazed I was at how fast it took. We put it on the market end of December. It took about 10 days before it was under contract. And we closed on it Friday. So yeah, guys, it's dirt. Like, it is dirt. This is the best way. And for some of you, this could be maybe half of your year's salary. This could be your year's salary. This could be maybe nowhere close to that, but just a nice extra chunk of change that you can do a lot with. Vacation or other expenses, paying off debt, whatever the case may be. So this is what people mean when they say invest in land, because it does build your net worth. Because if we would have kept the property a little longer, potentially, let's say 10 years from now, if we were in the long game and didn't have another vision, it could be worth even more than $25,000. And by the way, there was no pushback with this land. They were just like, okay, that's fine. I was like, yes. which also lets me know that I need to get back on the list that I found this property and find some more, because I'm eager now to hunt and find even more properties that are really dirt cheap, and also just flip it again. So I just really want to come on and discuss this with you guys, give you some nuggets, and hopefully you learn from this video. Look at my past videos. I saw just a lot of gems in there, and I don't preach or talk about anything that I don't do. So it is what it is, and I appreciate you guys watching. But if you made it to this point in the video, in the comment section, please put land, okay? Please put land, because it allows me to know you got to this point. And I certainly do appreciate all of the support, the kind words, and the motivation, because it gives me motivation when you guys, when you like the video, even if you don't like the video, when you watch it, you just give me feedback, and I appreciate that. So until next time, guys, you stay blessed. Peace.